Welcome to today's episode of Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Derman from Prospect Heights PD in Illinois. He has 13 years experience in law enforcement. Really looking forward to this conversation. So welcome to the show, Chief Derman. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, and I'm very excited to be on your podcast.
I'm excited for you to be here too. So the one thing I do want to kind of mention is when you and I talked offline, you told me your age, and you are my age. You are a super young chief of police. You are 35 years old. Did you always want to be a chief? Was that something that you, just as soon as you entered this career, that was something that you were striving? Or how did you enter into this role so young and early in your career?
Honestly, when I set out and had the mindset of wanting to be a police officer, becoming a chief of police was never a
Mm.
thought or a dream of mine. Um, it was just to get into law enforcement, to be a police officer, and have a career in this profession. I had no aspirations of becoming a chief or a deputy chief. How it came about, um, I work at a department that has uh, currently we have 24 sworn officers, and we have the room for 27, and I'm in the process of hiring the remaining officers. But in a smaller department, smaller agency like ours, I think it's easier to stand out. It's easier to be a familiar face
Mm.
with the current administration and the city officials. Um, I can attest and say that um, there definitely was luck on my side, right time, right place, and a little bit of skill, hard work, and being recognized and noticed by the right people, the people that make those decisions.
I love that. What did that transition look like for you? I know that you said that you were a deputy chief for 3 years. You've now been in this chief role for the last 6 months or so. How did that transition feel? Did you feel like you were super prepared in advance? Do you feel like it's been a little bit like trial by fire? Tell us how that transition went for you.
Um, I'll take a little bit further back. So I started out as a patrol officer, as everybody else does, and I did that for approximately 5 years. After that, I went off to a narcotics task force on behalf of the department. I did that for about 4 years. During that time, I took a promotional exam to test for the sergeant opening, and I scored the first test. I scored somewhere towards the bottom end of the list. I
Mm.
had no intention of leaving the task force or becoming a sergeant and coming back to patrol, so it wasn't something that I overly prepared for. The second time around, I did prepare for it, and I scored very well. After all was said and done, I placed number one on the list. And then opening came up. I was called by the chief at the time, and I was offered to come back as a patrol sergeant. Initially, I wanted to come back as an investigation sergeant, but the chief at the time thought that it would have been better for me and better suited to come back as a patrol sergeant. So I did. Um, a very short time after that, approximately a year and a half later, there was movement, retirement in the department, and I was called upon to become the deputy chief by the chief at the time. I would say that promotion and that career change was more difficult to navigate
Mm.
and more foreign than it was becoming the chief. I was going from supervising and managing three officers that were assigned to the shift, four officers, to now managing, supervising the patrol division, the investigations division, working with the records division, the civilian employees. Becoming the chief and moving into that role wasn't as much of a challenge. It wasn't an overly new position because the chief at the time, under whom I served as the deputy chief, really did a good job of preparing me for the position, allowing me to explore various roles and tasks of what it is to be the chief. He had a feeling, and he had the support of um, he had the support in me, and he saw that I could potentially one day be the chief here. So he really allowed me to immerse myself into that role, even as a deputy chief.
And I know the importance of mentorship, and that's kind of what I hear when you say that is that you had someone who mentored you and really prepared you for the role that you're in now. And we know that this profession as a whole is getting younger. And I hear it all the time. It's like we have this thing where, kind of the older generation is retiring. We have a lot of men and women who are younger in their career who are now, rising the ranks and entering various leadership positions. How do you think, as chief or as command staff, that you can prepare this younger generation for that upward movement?
I think the biggest idea that chiefs, deputy chiefs, um, individuals that are in leadership positions, they have to recognize and know that we're not going to be here forever. And
Mm,
it's not, I am the chief and I'm always going to be the chief. We have to have the mindset of we have to prepare the younger generation, those that are younger than us, that are up and coming, to replace us, because essentially that is what's going to happen. If if I am going to do service to my position in this department, then that means preparing the deputy chief, the sergeants to take over my position and the positions above them.
mm,
Um, and it can be silent mentorship. It doesn't have to be loud and over the top, but just simply recognizing that the road doesn't stop with me. And I can be replaced tomorrow, that the department will still continue operating the same way it is right now. It will have a new chief of police, but preparing those younger generations, giving them more responsibility, giving them tasks that actually matter and make them feel like their opinion and their voice matters is what silent leadership is to me, and what it means to prepare the younger and the next generation to take over and assume these roles and responsibilities.
yeah, I love that perspective because I think that no matter who you are, everyone wants to feel like they're valued and that they matter and that they are an individual with unique ideas and perspectives, and to have a culture and a mentality of you are valued and we do care about what you think, and we are here and open and receptive to your ideas. We're also here to mentor you and make sure that you're the best version of yourself that you possibly can be because you are the future of this department and we recognize that. What advice would you give to that younger person who maybe does have aspirations or goals to be in leadership? Are there like certain qualities or certain steps that you would recommend them taking early in their career?
I would say if you find it in yourself that you want to get into leadership, supervisory positions, you first start with yourself.
Mm,
How do you self improve? What are things that you can do individually to sharpen those skills, whether it's attending seminars, reading books, listening to leadership podcasts, uh, but just really focusing on what is your skill set and what can you improve on individually. Secondly, seeking out tasks and assignments that will expose you to those leadership positions and what is required in those leadership positions. Don't just sit around and wait for somebody to pick you out of the group and say, you are the next sergeant, you're the next lieutenant, deputy chief, but rather be proactive and go to your administration, go to your bosses and say, is there specific tasks, assignments that you want me to do that will expose me to upper management, to leadership, to supervision? You show initiative, but you're preparing along the way. And it doesn't have to happen, which I see is a fault of law enforcement in regards to leadership and supervision. We don't do a good job of preparing our young officers to be leaders, to be supervisors. We wait for them to take a test. We wait for them to score high on the test, and then they are told, go out there and be a sergeant.
mm,
But what are we doing well in advance to prepare these individuals that want that responsibility and want to be leaders? Are we sending them to leadership specific training? Are we exposing them to those tasks, those assignments that will um, engage that part of the brain and engage that part of them that requires them to be in those roles. And so those are really the things we need to focus on in shaping that young generation, which I said to my point was they need to be trained and ready to take over. It's going to fall on them. To me, future succession and planning is everything.
Mm,
I look good when somebody else does something and represents the department in a good light. It means nothing to the city council or the citizens of Prospect Heights if one individual is successful. But if the
yeah.
department as a whole is successful and our patrol shifts are recognized, our detectives are recognized, I automatically have done my job because the department is doing what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, I really like that perspective. And one of the words that you said that really stuck out to me was proactive. Being proactive about these things and trying to prepare well in advance. And, we're obviously going to talk a little bit about wellness today too. But I think that proactiveness is sometimes the hardest thing to do, to have that foresight of what does the future look like and how can I prepare now? How is what I'm doing right now going to set me up for success in the future? And that could be in the context of leadership. That could be in the context of retirement. That could be in the context of longevity and wellness. So I want to rewind a little bit because you had told me that you were an FTO and three
Mhm.
months into being an FTO, you experienced an injury. You had torn your shoulder and you had surgery. What was that moment like for you, and how did that change your perspective on wellness?
Yeah, so when I was younger, I became a police officer at 22. When I was younger, I didn't working out, focusing on fitness, self-care in terms of eating right and exercising mainly wasn't something that I was overly concerned with. I was never overly out of shape, but I wasn't a gym goer. I wasn't somebody who was passionate about that. So early on in my career, I was in field training. Um, I went to the police academy, and that's where I kind of started working out in the police academy. It was a requirement due to physical tests and of that nature. But in field training, I was pursuing a subject on foot. It was a rainy night. I stepped into a puddle, lost my balance, and I fell and I braced myself with my arms as I fell, and I tore my shoulder, my labrum, and my rotator cuff. Um, and I needed surgery. So a couple months after that, I had surgery, which put me out for about 2 months or so before I was able to get back into physical therapy and then eventually back to full duty. But I really had a wake up call. I realized that at any given moment, this job might require you to get into a foot pursuit or a situation where your physical abilities will be tested and might really come into play into that situation. And that is when I realized that I need to be prepared for that situation at any given moment. And I really focused on physical health, physical fitness, uh, bettering myself as an individual physically, and just being able to go into the job knowing that I was the best version of myself physically and that my fitness was at the utmost level to handle those situations.
Do you think that in a way, wellness, and that could be physical wellness, mental wellness, do you think in a way that wellness equals safety?
I think so. I do, but I also think wellness equals confidence.
Mm,
And I say that from a perspective of watching a lot of officers' body worn camera videos. The officers who train jujitsu, who train some form of martial arts, seeing them in a physical confrontation with a uncooperative subject or somebody who is combative is a breath of fresh air. Their voice is never elevated. They're never yelling. They never use too much force because they are confident in their physical abilities and what they can do in that situation. Oftentimes, officers who don't have any mixed martial arts or combative training don't necessarily know what to rely on in that moment. And oftentimes that's when you see the elevated um, voice commands, or in some situations, they might use too much force. But
Mhm.
a lot of our officers here do train personally in jujitsu and defensive tactics and different martial arts forms. And seeing those officers in action in those situations, it's just very refreshing. And you really can tell that this guy or girl, they're very confident in their physical abilities. They're confident in that situation. And in the way that they deal with that subject is, I mean, it's very, very professional.
Yeah, I really like that sentence that fitness and wellness equals confidence. I think
Mm-hmm.
that is such a powerful statement to make, and I can see that. I could see how you would feel more prepared, how you would feel ready for whatever comes your way, and confident in your own physical ability to do so. I would also imagine that the people that you are dealing with, in that moment can also sense that confidence. We've all had those experiences where someone walks up and they just carry themselves in a way where you pay attention. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
whoa, like this person is in good physical shape. The way they're presenting themselves is professional. Like you said, it has that confidence. And I would imagine that maybe that also makes people think twice, with how they respond to you in those situations. I had a conversation with the chief one time that said, because he was physically fit, people would size him up and they'd be like, no, I can't take him. Or like, I don't think I could beat him on a foot chase, And so
Mm-hmm.
the amount of um, use of force that he was like put in, like he didn't have to do that because and other people would, people would test you. And if they look at you and they're like, this person's confident, I think they can handle themselves, they might not want to run away from you or try to challenge you in that same type
Mm-hmm.
of way.
Yeah, I can confidently say that I agree with that point 100%. So I went to the Illinois State Police Academy, that is a paramilitary police academy ran by state troopers, Illinois state troopers. And prior to that point, I I didn't really know or understand what it meant to have um, officer presence, what it meant to
Mm.
have that squared away look. There is a reason why state troopers, especially in Illinois, are why they carry themselves the way that they do. But they really pressed upon us that first impression when arriving on a scene to a call or dealing with a subject. That is the first thing they see about you. The first thing they see is your officer presence, and it goes from your physical fitness to your grooming standards to the way that your uniform is put together, cleanliness, if your boots are orderly and shined. And they really impressed on us that there was studies done of criminals, individuals that fought with the police, and a lot of them had said, when asked, "Why did you fight with the officer?" and their answer was, "Well, because he looked like I could take him.
Hmm.
He didn't look that put together. He did not look like a threat." And really, what they were saying is, maybe the officer wasn't um, presentable with their uniform, the way that they were standing. Maybe they had their hands in their vest, or holding holding a flashlight, maybe a notebook. So all of that really does matter. That's the first thing that individuals see about you. And I agree. Over my 13 years, I have been in very small number of uses of forces. Um, and I really attest a lot of that to how you talk to people, how you present yourself, and that initial and first interaction and what they see when you do present yourself to them. But it's a full circle, right? It's being confident in your abilities and looking the part.
Yeah. How do you think that you can encourage people to be proactive with their wellness? Because we know that, and you have a story kind of similar of like, yeah, I had an injury And then that injury was my wake up call to then start prioritizing my wellness in a better way. And that was kind of that like jump start for you to like really put in that effort. And I hear that a lot, and I think as humans, we kind of do that, right? It's like there's not a problem until there's a problem. How do you think that we can encourage people to be more proactive and get in front of those things and prioritize that before there's an injury or before there's a problem?
Well, I think in law enforcement, it starts with with the leaders, right? With the upper management, with the leadership. I'll be honest, most of the times, most of the days are spent, for me, are spent at the station, in this office, not wearing a vest, not wearing heavy equipment. But I haven't let myself go from my days in patrol in terms of physical preparation, in terms of uh, physical appearance and presentation. So leading by example, it's huge. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
when you see your chief of police, your deputy chief, your sergeants who are still very capable and are still very, um, um, I don't want to say concerned, but they're still, they still care enough to say that if I'm going to ask you to be presentable, look the part, then I'm going to do the same. So really leading by example. Um, Something else is that we have to think of innovative ways to encourage that participation and the willingness to want to be in shape, to take care of your mental wellness, to take care of your physical wellness. Um, we do that here through various methods. I know that some departments also offer, in Illinois, we have what's called a power test, but they offer the power test. And if an officer successfully completes this physical assessment, they'll offer them comp time, a little bit of time off. We offer on duty workouts. When we have a full shift, an individual checks in with their sergeant and they're allowed to go for an hour downstairs to our police department gym, take off their uniform and work out. Have an hour to themselves to work out. Once the workout is done, they're expected to come back to duty. But that is something that we offer that encourages that. We encourage and we really promote team participation at various events. Roll for Dough is an event where there is a friendly competition between police departments and CrossFit gyms.
Mm.
We get on row machines, and it's a special Olympic event. Um, Torch Run is another physical event where we run about 4 miles through our city to raise awareness and money for Special Olympics. So encouraging those types of events as a team, as a department to promote physical fitness are all things that departments can do or um, agencies can do in this profession.
Yeah, I like that. Leading by example, but also having that encouragement. Did you say that group thing was row for dough?
Yes.
Like for money?
Yeah. Row
That's
for dough,
fun.
as in, yeah, raising funds for the Special Olympics.
I love that. And
Yeah.
I also really love the idea of having something on the back end that feels fulfilling because I think that, you know, in law enforcement, but also in other, type A type fields, I think that, you are so good at taking up care of other people. And sometimes it's not as easy for you to take care of yourself. But if you have that um, incentivization of like, hey, like, we're going to do this and it's going to take care of us. It's going to build that camaraderie, that team environment. We're also focusing on wellness and fitness, but we're also raising money for Special Olympics. And so we're taking care of other people at the same time. Then it feels maybe a little less. I'm going to say selfish in like quotes because I don't think that there's
Hmm.
anything wrong with being selfish, especially in the context of your own wellness. I think that that is something you should be selfish with. I think you
Hmm.
should prioritize yourself. But for people who maybe, um, really care more about the service part of things, and that's a really good way to say, hey, we're going to do this for Special Olympics. So I like that a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And I forgot to mention, we also have, I think, generally coming up with fun ways to promote it. One of our patrol sergeants came up with the idea of doing a competitive board of various physical fitness tests downstairs in our gym. And he came to the chief at the time and myself, the deputy chief. He said, "Hey, I have this idea. I want to put up this board. It would be a competition, top 5, 6 spots for maximum amount of pull-ups, maximum amount of push-ups. How fast can you run a mile?" And that in itself creates a fun, friendly competition. We all know police officers are very competitive, and that was a big success. That was a big hit of getting people in the gym working out because, hey, I want to be on the board, right? I want my name on the list somewhere. I want to compete. I want to be up there with the guys that can do in 90 to 100 push-ups, and that was a very fun and nice way of promoting fitness as well.
Yeah. No, I like that a lot. I mean, you guys aren't competitive at all.
Not at all.
I hear 100 push-ups and I'm like, geez, there's no way. I gotta work myself up to that. Um, I know that, 3 years ago, you said that you had another kind of like aha moment or kind of a realization that you were seeing people retire from this profession in poor health. And that's, physical, mental, nutritional, lots of different pillars maybe of wellness. But what were some of the things that you were seeing? And why do you think seeing those things had such a big impact on you?
So, in order to answer that, I just got to give little bit of a little brief history of Prospect Heights. So, Prospect Heights, the police department, was started in 1990. When they started the department in 1990, they brought on um, 15 or 17 officers from various agencies. Some were new hires, some were lateral transfers, and so about 3 years ago, maybe even 3 to 5 years ago, a lot of those guys started retiring. And now, as a young police officer, when I came into this career at 22, I saw all those guys as idols. Really, there's still stories being talked about those guys, the things they did back in the day, how they policed, because policing is very different now than it was 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
But they were idols to a lot of us. They were people we looked up to. They were officers, sergeants that we admired. Seeing them retire, um, a, a couple of them, a few of them, seeing them retire and um, not be able to enjoy retirement due to medical health concerns, um, due to issues that really they shouldn't have been having. They put in 25 to 30 years of their life into a career in law enforcement, and now is their time to enjoy retirement and live comfortably and really be with their family. But yet they faced some health concerns, some serious problems, and in some situations, death. And so that to me was really a wake up call as to, well, we put in 20, 25, 30 years into this career. Well, what is it all worth it that when you retire, you don't get a chance to enjoy the sacrifice you made for more than half your life?
Yeah.
And it really, it really, um, it really woke something up in me that, hey, we got to do something for these guys while they're active duty and working to better prepare them for retirement.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I know you said that you actually wrote a thesis paper on this. Like that was kind of one of the results of that is doing research and writing a paper on longevity and preparing for retirement in a healthier way. What does longevity look like to you? And maybe what were some of the things that you found in your research that people can um, be more proactive in preventing and setting themselves up for that long and successful career in retirement?
Yeah, you're correct. I did write a thesis paper in one of the trainings I was in. Longevity is so much more than just dealing with the pressures and the aftermath of the calls on the job or the situation on the job. And for the longest time, that's what I always thought was um, the issue with law enforcement was all the PTSD or the trauma that you might take away from going to a hard call or a difficult situation. But in fact, doing this research and writing this thesis paper, it's a lot more than that. And there's just something about law enforcement that creates a lot of bad habits, um, and just it's not a profession where individuals can openly talk about what they're going through, what they're experiencing. But there are also a lot of personal factors to consider when talking about longevity. Um, we need to, as a profession, um, really do a better job of not just helping our officers deal with the stress that they might take home from the job, but also younger officers need help in setting up their financial situations, setting up their personal financial situations. I can be completely honest with you. When I first got the job, the first thing that I did was I went and bought a nice car, as a lot of us do. Police officers, we love cars, we love boats, we love toys. And as a young police officer, you come into a good amount of money, and that's the first thing you want to do. You want to go buy fun, nice toys. No one really sits us down and tells us, well, this is what a retirement account looks like. This is what buying stocks looks like. This is what investing your money and planning for the future looks like. But rather, you have a pension, you'll be okay.
Mm.
Well, that's not always the case. And so I want to prepare our young officers and even our um, not so young officers on financial awareness. That's one part of longevity to me is financial awareness. What does it mean to buy a home? How do you buy a home? How do you apply for credit? How do you deal with credit cards? How do you deal with auto loans? How do you invest money? How do you get a second source of revenue after your career and in retirement outside of your pension?
Mm.
um, Dealing with the job itself and how can we alleviate the officer stress. We have a full-time social worker here at the Prospect Heights Police Department that is utilized, but isn't utilized. Well, now we are changing that, but she wasn't being utilized to her full potential. I sat down with all the shifts and we had roll call briefings on how the social worker can be utilized. Uh, we are trained in mental health and mental health awareness, but not as much as a social worker. So when officers have a call that is a mental health related call, they're encouraged and allowed to call the social worker once they make the scene safe and bring her out to the scene to deal with those individuals that she might be or he might be better equipped to deal with than the police officers.
I love it. I love that you talked about different aspects of wellness. I'm like sitting here shaking my head because, what you said earlier, of like, what's the point? Like, what's the point of getting to the end of this career if you have no money, mentally, you don't feel good, physically, you're not good, and you can't enjoy your life and the commitment that you made throughout your career in the service. And someone said to me one time, and it really stuck with me, and I think it's really in line with what you just said, is of course we want you to live a long and successful life, but we want you to live it well. And I
Mm-hmm.
think there has to be that like addition to it. It's like we want you to feel good at the end of it. It's not just about living longer, because if you live longer and you're sick and you don't feel well and everything is in shambles, well then you don't want that either, right? You don't want to live to 90 feeling that way. Like we want you
Right,
to live to 90 but like well. And what does
right.
well look like? How can we set you up so that you are thriving, not just surviving? And I've talked about this a little bit on this podcast before, but I think it's such a sad statement that people have settled for over the years of like, how can we just get you to survive this career? And of course, we want you to survive, but how can we set you up so that you thrive in this career and in retirement?
Mm-hmm.
Financial wellness is something that has been a topic of discussion that I think has just recently started to really come to the forefront of like one of the like root causes for a lot of other things. You know, I do think wellness is very interconnected. Physical relates to mental, mental relates to physical, financial relates to mental. You know, it's all intertwined. And we know, even just in general, one of the number one reasons for divorce is money. And if you can set people up early with the tools that they need to be able to invest, with the tools that they need to at least have some awareness and education around budgeting, or like you
Mhm.
said, all the things that you mentioned, then maybe that helps also with home wellness. You know, maybe that also helps so that you don't feel like you have to work overtime to
Mhm.
pay the bills and to keep it together. So now you're less stressed and now you have more time away from the job that you can decompress. So I know we talked a little bit about this before too. Like, I know you and I share the same like solutions oriented mindset. And so we talked about physical wellness, we talked about financial wellness. And then I know mental wellness is something that is also a priority for you guys too. Can you give a little bit of insight on like how you are building that trust within the organization so that people feel like if they need something from a mental health perspective, they have the ability to do so in a confidential way, in a way where they don't feel scared of losing their job and that they're going to get the actual help and support that they need?
Sure, absolutely. So to me, as the chief and as just an individual, to me, health is wealth. Without health, you really you can have all the money in the world and you can have all the riches, but if you're not healthy, you have nothing.
Mm,
I make it a point, and it goes back to my previous point. You can take all of us here at Prospect Heights or any other police department, place us, and the department will run just fine. This job is not everything. Your family, to me, your family comes first. Your personal life comes first. For a very long time in law enforcement, officers were looked at as needing to give the utmost dedication and all of their time to the profession, to the department, be available at all times, and just be ready to come in and work. That's not my perspective. Your family is always going to be there. This job only lasts 20 to 30 years. And once you're done, you're done. You have to live your personal life. I make it a point to really promote and encourage that. If people want time off, I will never go to that individual and ask why or give them a hard time about it. I do my hardest to accommodate. We don't have paternity or maternity leave here in our department, but people are allowed to use sick time if approved. But I do my hardest to make adjustments to the schedule so that I can accommodate those requests when it comes to paternity leave. Um, One thing that I'm doing this year is I partnered up with a company called Angie's Place to bring in wellness checks, individual wellness checks for all of our sworn members, something that we've never done. Um, and what it's going to look like is a police officer meeting with a mental health professional off site while on duty so that I'm not inconveniencing them at a building outside of the police department at their own chosen date and time for an hour and meeting with this mental health professional. But what I like about this company and what they do is they coach you and train you and give you tips and techniques on how to deal with stressors of the job rather than sitting there and saying, "Hey, Paige, tell me how you feel."
mm,
They give you methods on how to cope with stress, how to deal with it, how to talk about it, almost like giving you a workout plan.
hmm
And that's what I really like. And I'm looking forward to these wellness checks that are becoming later on this year. But promoting that type of lifestyle here at the police department, that it's okay to enjoy your time off. It's okay to spend time with your family. It's okay that your family comes first, and your family should come first. I think really sends that message, and it matters. It means to people that it's not just about work; it's about them individually. Also, The younger generation does a very, very good job of doing that versus 10, 15 years ago, that wasn't the case. But I give credit to this younger generation of police officers. Their time is their time, and they're not going to work every single overtime shift. They enjoy their activities outside of work and they make time for it. And I really give them a lot of credit for that, for recognizing that and going about their career and their lifestyle like that.
Yeah. I'm a really big proponent for this idea that two things can be true at once. And it's not always either or. And I think that the wild thing is that by prioritizing time off, activities outside of the career, having a healthy and strong home life, it impacts performance on the job. You're going to come to work and you're going to feel refreshed, you're going to feel less stressed, you're going to feel like ready and prepared to do your job when you're at work. So it's almost like a reverse, not reverse psychology, but a reverse method of like, hey, like if you don't just make everything about this and everything over here in your home life crumbles and is in shambles, then you can actually maybe even do a better job because you feel like your personal life is thriving and your work life is thriving. And just because someone prioritizes their home life and their family life doesn't mean that they aren't also prioritizing work life. Both things can be true, but I think, like you said, historically it was put everything into one basket, even if that was at a detriment to your own personal life. And we talked about this a little bit of, kind of in the older, like old school mentality of like, suck it up. Wellness is not really a priority. These are the things that matter. These are the things that don't matter. How do you challenge those like new and innovative thought processes? And how do you encourage people to maybe have an open mind to change and be receptive to new concepts and new ideas as you progress in your agency with wellness?
Yeah, I agree 100% that people are definitely more rejuvenated, re-energized when they do come back from a break. There's so much stress placed on police officers, especially in Illinois, from various sides, whether it's from individuals committing crimes, whether it's from um, the courts, wherever it may be. We have to limit the stress that we put on them as their coworkers, as people that work with them. And so I agree with you 100% that they do come back re-energized. What can we do to promote that? Participate in it as well. Lead by example. Um, I'm not going to require wellness checks if I'm not going to do a wellness check. So you can bet everything that I'm doing one myself. Um, if I ask somebody to do something or if I recommend something, it's coming from a place of experience or something that I've done, something that I've tried. Really being in the front lines with the officers and working with them to show and stand by them and say that I'm going to do this as well. If this works for you, it works for me. I'm no better than anyone else here, and we're all equal. That really, to me, speaks loudly. And I've learned that over a course of my career. Those individuals who have a message but are not participating or abiding by that message, their words carry no weight, and the message carries no weight. It's hard to buy into that message and go along with.
Yeah, no, I agree. My final question for you is in the context of the younger generation. What words of wisdom would you give to them? Maybe something that you wish you would have known earlier in your career or something that's helped you along the way.
I'll base it. I'll base it on myself. And I think I've alluded to this previously. The job isn't everything. There are many aspects of your life that were there before the job and will be there after the job. Enjoy the job, enjoy the career, but don't forget about your personal life. Don't forget about yourself. Um, Take care of yourself in every way that you can. I myself uh, had a very hard time opening up and talking about the job and what I saw out there and what I dealt with. And so my recommendation would be to find someone to talk to and just Let them know how your day was, what happened at work, and how it made you feel. What are the things that you saw? Oftentimes, just getting it out there and speaking about it makes it a lot easier to swallow and consume and understand why what happened and why it happened. Um, if you see something that you don't like, bring it up to your administration, bring it up to the people that can make a change. Something on your shift that is being handled not appropriately, or a certain stigma that exists, be a voice for that and make it very known that this is not okay. It's affecting people negatively, and just simply speak up to the people that can make a change and do something about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate you coming on here and um, sharing your words of wisdom and your experience. And I appreciate your like innovative mindset with this of really trying to understand how we can be more proactive and how we can set current and future generations up for success. So thank you for coming on here and spending an hour with me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I really think that this is a wonderful, a wonderful thing that you have going on to bring this awareness to law enforcement. It's been it still is, it's been a macho profession where these things that we've talked about, wellness in general, has been very silent and hasn't been a hot topic. But we need to take care of our police officers a lot more than we are. And like I said, we need to prepare them for retirement and make sure that they have a successful and a healthy life after their career is over. So thank you. I sincerely mean that.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.